Welcome back once again. This is Amuni Israel. I don't have long this afternoon, but I want to say greetings and welcome for those who just joined us. All praise be to the Most High, the Holy One of creation, for another opportunity. There's so much things to talk about. There's so, as Bob Marley would say, so much things to say right now. We got so much things to say. I'm gonna give y'all some time. I'm gonna sing y'all a little song. So much things to say right now. So much things to say. We got so many things to say right now. You know what I said to myself before I came on like 2 seconds ago? I was like, I got to start doing some more commercial drops, okay? Some relevant commercial drops because we need funding for the research. You know what I'm saying? As y'all know, I like books. You feel me? Among other things. And so there's so much things that I want to do, but then duty calls like today. So I'm not going to stay long. I came across a post, okay? And it's going to connect because you know what I'm doing here at Solar Monomics at this time, in conjunction with the Left Project, is to see the spaces of injury that have been caused by America's or the West's original sin. So the post says this. Hold on one second. So much things to say right now. I got so much things to say. Do, 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 do. All right. Okay, so the title of this is Welfare Babies. Fox News article breeds contempt. That's the name of this, okay? And so I haven't really been on Facebook much lately either. So I come across one of my friends on Facebook sharing that since somebody named Christopher says, since Facebook deleting Blink to protect racists, here you go. And so he reposts something that was deleted, okay? The person who actually posts is someone named Nathaniel Jensen, and he says, you need, and it's a European, okay? He says, you need any convincing that racism is alive and well in America? Just look at these comments on this Fox News article posted this morning. We need to be better than this. And this was, hold on one second. Why does it say my live? I'm looking at it over here, and it's saying there's an error. Hold on one second. We're back. Okay, so I'm like, you know, I'm like, okay, what article is this? So the person, not the first person, the second person, which is Christopher, was able to screenshot all of these things before it mysteriously got erased. What's going on here? Hold on. Because it's looking strange in my phone too. Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I had screenshotted the screenshot, and now I'm not seeing it. Hold on a second. Okay, so the original Fox News, you can see it right here. Okay. The original Fox News article on Facebook says a Houston woman gave birth to 6 babies in a span of 9 minutes on Friday morning. Okay. That's what the original, and I'll show it to you again. That's what the original Fox News article said. For those who just joined us, Welfare Babies, Fox News article breeds contempt. And we're going to go into it and we're going to make the connections as we usually do. A lot of people say, why do you keep talking about this, Amuna? Because it's important. Okay. It's very present. Let me just say that. The residuals of the original trauma is still here. Okay. Why is this going on? Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the original person who posted it because my screenshot game is hating on the kid right now. I got so much things to say right now. So much things to say. Okay. A Houston woman gave birth to 6 babies. I read that. Then here are some of the comments. All I see, somebody named Michael Yax Kolozic or whomever, all I see is 6 new welfare cases and a new addition to being built on local prison, and probably, not probably, but probably 4 or 5 possible daddies hiding. Okay? And then another person says, just what we need. And then somebody says 5 different baby daddies. And then another person named Alan Ring says, oh, great, more welfare recipients. And then Gary Watts says, does she know who the fathers are? Like, this post was erased. This is what they're saying. So that for me to go back and see all the comments, I'm not able to do so because the post was erased. Someone else, Brian says, great, 6 more on welfare. Where was Planned Parenthood? They really dropped the ball on this one. On the first comment, you're seeing over 500, actually 555 reactions to the person's comment, but I'm not able to see it at this time. I feel bad for the guy playing child support. Where those babies' daddies? I'm sure it's not Uncle Sam, says Eric Fagan. Lloyd Stevens said, yeah, because we need more of them. Listen to the mentality. It was just an article, seemingly benign article, saying that this woman had 6 children. So she had multiple gestations. Okay, if I'm not, it's called sextuplets, if I'm not mistaken. And the article just says that she has it, and the interpretation of those who are seeing the articles are automatically spun in the negative. And because she's melanated, that must mean she's going to be on welfare. Somebody named Dean Melby says, ridiculous. Who's paying for all this? Probably us. Benjamin says, it should have read the taxpayer receives 9 more dependents. And another person says, Connie Keene with no face says, yep, another we fear. That doesn't even spell welfare. I don't know what's going on if it's their autocorrect or whatever. Case, our tax dollars at work. And 194 people either liked, laughed, or were angry about this particular comment. I found those interesting. Some people may be triggered by that discussion. Some people may be triggered by what was said. I don't know if I'm necessarily triggered, or I just want to go into a history lesson. So I want to go into a history lesson as some of the stuff that we already know concerning slave breeding. So when we look at the thesis, before I start, let me say, I'm gonna do a little. So I do have the Soul Center, right? And so a lot of the people who we read just now are full of poo-poo. Okay, this is my C3 challenge shot, y'all. They're full of poo-poo. Okay, and that's a reality in this world that based on our diets, a lot of people are full of feces. And so on the real, I actually compiled a program called the C3 Challenge. It's a 30-day program that helps with cleansing your colon, as well as coaching you through the cleansing process. A lot of the ideas that we hold, the energy that we keep are stored within our body. And this also leads to high levels of sickness and disease. And so let me just go ahead and take you guys on a short commercial break before I jump into this here over at. So short commercial break. This is something that I labored for some time ago. It's called the C3 Challenge. The way you can support this channel is by either gifting it to somebody, taking it for yourself, writing a review, whatever you have to do. So I kind of like to exchange for exchange. You understand what I'm saying? And so the way you can support this channel is by supporting the works. Either the books that are on Amazon, I have a number of books on Amazon, or some of the courses here at the Soul Center, so that we can improve. So this is really what I'm about. It's a $50 course. It goes through 1 month. And it's an awesome endeavor. A number of people have gone through it. This particular one, here's the preview of the course. You have assignments. You see here, this is all the goodness that you get here. And so it is proven, it works. And so hop on over to the link below in the box. Stop sharing here. And that's my little commercial break. Support the channel. All right, so, and that's for you guys. Timothy, welcome to the discussion. That's for you guys. So there's a lot of cleansing, but I deal with holistically looking at the situation. And so it's not just physically colon cleansing, it's cleansing your emotions and other things such as that. But let's get back to this conversation of welfare babies. Fox News article breeds contempt. Okay, so I read you, if you missed it, You're going to have to rewind after I'm done. But I read you some of the comments. Oh, great. These are welfare babies. So let's talk about the history of this country and this concept of domestic abuse, which is the lens by which I choose to look at the institution of slavery, right? In domestic abuse situation where the South or slavery in general was this paternal system where the European man was the father for everyone else, essentially, right? This patriarchal system. Okay, the European man is the father, and the child is the slave is the perpetual child. Now, there was a time in history where before they got to this whole breeding scheme, there was a time in history where it was cheaper just to replace that slave body for another slave body. And so when many people first came here, the concentration was not on breeding or reproduction, the concentration was on just general brute force labor. And you will see that in the demographics of people who were brought, there were considerably more men than women who were brought to the Americas in the beginning. Now, when you had the petition, and I'm going to read from this book briefly, so I can connect what's going on, what we're experiencing now to then. So historically, after the slave trade was abolished, and there's this thought of no longer getting any more fresh bodies from the continent, then you have this new interest in breeding, okay? Because now it's like, forget you, I'm going to make my own, okay? I'm going to read shortly because I'm not going to try. Okay, boom. This is on page 70 of the book called Slave Breeding by Gregory D. Smithers. Okay. It says here. No, so that just keep that in mind because we have to follow the train of thought. So the oppressor, the one who has been oppressing and exploiting you, is saying to you and your foreparents, now it is beneficial for me to make you breed. Now it's beneficial because those babies, those slave babies, because the status of the woman determined the status of the child. So if the mother is enslaved, then the child is enslaved, right? And so this is what caused this level of perpetual servitude. At first, especially in these colonies, that wasn't the case. The status of the child was determined by the father. But again, one woman in particular sued for her freedom and won. And then in Virginia, they sat down and they began to do this legislation to change it that the status of the child follows the mother. There was a time where they encouraged mothers, and I'm going to read briefly out of this, which is just a collection, but I'm just going to read this real quick. Du Bois, and this is page 70. Du Bois, analyst of the international slave trade, was a serious challenge to white professional historians determined to focus on the facts of the slaves' South political economy. Du Bois was interested in these issues, but he was also concerned with the causes and legacies of the North American slave population dramatic growth after the international slave trade to the United States was abolished in 1808. This is what we just read from that Fox News article is a legacy of slavery. This is the interpretation, this is the prejudice, this is the biases that were passed down. These are the inheritances of slavery, okay? It says Henry Clay, Bruce Benjamin, let me jump down. In suppressing, though, Du Bois does not take up these issues and the related issue of population increase among slaves in American South after 1808. As systematically as he would in subsequent work, David Levering Lewis explains this by arguing that Du Bois failed to recognize that most slaves imported from Africa after 1808 found themselves in Brazil or Cuba. As Lewis explains, slaveholders in the American South not only mainly grew their own labor force, they encouraged living conditions that kept their investments alive, generally healthy, and augmenting in value. Okay? So there was a time in American history where this slave breeding, because it was profitable to the slave master and the institution, was encouraged. So when you hear the comments in the comment section, I'm going to read a few of them for those who just joined us. I'm going to read it after in a little bit. When you hear this concern of who is going to be taking care of these slaves, who is going to be slaves, who's going to be taking care of these babies, when the article, I didn't read the article I didn't see the article because they erased it, but it doesn't say anything about that. But automatically, epigenetically, the people in the comment section are triggered. And they want to know who is going to be financially responsible, who is going to be socially responsible. We cannot neglect or negate to acknowledge that in this country and in the Western Hemisphere, at one point, the slave master was excited to hear that you were pregnant and actually bargained with you that if you bore a certain amount of children, that would mean your freedom. Now, if according to trauma bonding, these traumatic situations are passed down intergenerationally. I remember one time somebody was like, I'm gonna come on. Are you trying to blame teenage pregnancy on slavery? So intergenerational issues can be passed down, but trauma in this in the space of reproduction can't be. Question. So now that slavery was abolished, I could read more, but I don't want to run too long. Now that slavery was abolished, now that you're no longer necessarily profiting, and now that you've created an environment where still the male is endangered, still beyond convict leasing, you have the prison industrial complex, still many people do not have access to proper health care and things of that nature that they can be self-sufficient. Still, they're fighting for very basic survival rights, and you know that, but we want to ignore the social economic aspect. Cynthia, welcome to the conversation. We want to ignore that and then automatically say, well, who's going to be responsible for this? The same person who encouraged it. If that's the case, if that's the train of thought you want to go on, don't hop off the train early. Let's keep going. Let's talk about historically in this country, 1, 2, 300 years ago, actually two in about that part, it was encouraged. It was encouraged. Actually, yeah, 200. 1808 slave trade, internationalists finished and they turned to say, we're going to inbreed everybody, okay? And you encourage this. So let's read about some of this encouragement, shall we? I think these conversations are important because we're going to still keep having these levels of prejudices. We're going to still keep having this misunderstanding of history, and so that one can essentially absorb themselves. It's taxpayers' dollars but you were taking people's babies, selling people's babies, splitting up families. You were doing these things. This is historical. And now the concern is, oh, these people are having babies. Who's going to be taking care of them? Cynthia, thank you for tuning in. Okay. When I read some of these numbers, I couldn't believe it. But after I keep reading them over and over, I'm like, you know what? One lady in okay, let's read about the slave man, because people keep saying, well, where is the parent? Not the where is the parents. They keep saying, where is the baby daddy, right? That was a real condition that was created here. And here we're going to read from J.W. Hawkins, 73 at the time of the interview. They interviewed him in Arkansas. The thing they were fighting began in slavery. There was a slave men kept that forced slave women to do what they wanted to do. And if the slave women didn't do it, the master or the overseer whipped them till they did. The women were beat and made to go to them. They would say, when breeding came in and it was advantageous for those who were in power to breed you, they determined this strong strapping buck and this strong wench, I'm going to breed them, and forced you into these sexual relationships only for the purpose of yielding children. So the owner of the woman owns the child, okay? So that you can breed more little slave babies for the master. The women were beat and made to go to them. They were big, fine men, and masters wanted the women to have children by them. Today, they're saying, well, where are the fathers? And this type of behavior that has now been embedded in your DNA and needs to be analyzed, right? We need to take a look at this. Now, the same demographic of people who encouraged it are now turning around and condemning without acknowledging that, say, you know what, yes, these things were done and this area does need to be analyzed instead of pointing the finger. It says, and there were some white men too who forced the slave women to do what they wanted. Some of them didn't want to stop when slavery stopped. Another one. Ellen Cragen, ex-slave, around 80 at the time of the interview. My mother had 18 children, and I had 16, but all of mine dead now but 3. They were being bred, and this was actually in their records. I have to go over there, but I'm not going to go all the way over there right now because then that's going to take me on another track. But they had these thoughts of breeding women every year and encourage them to have a child every year. Do you know what that does to your womb? Yeah, okay. She says the mother had 18 and she had 16. Mama's grandma, or grandpapa Haley had 22 children. Yes, ma'am, they sure did have plenty to eat. Because now you get kickbacks for furnishing the master with all of these children. This is history. We have to be able, all sides, to sit down and actually be honest about what was done. Yes, ma'am, they sure did have plenty to eat. Mas Daniel said to his wife, Cornelia, feed my ninjas. That bouse last he did when he went off to war. Mars Green, Daniel, and Jimmy, 3 brothers, 3 John brothers, buried their gold money in stone jars and iron cooking pots, for they left and went to the war. So we're hearing about 18 children, 16 children, 22 children. We're hearing about men encouraged to be breeders, and the women knowing who their baby daddy is, but having no real relationship with them in certain spaces. Not all cases, but in certain spaces. You had abroad marriages, and now I'm just going off the dome. You had abroad marriages that were encouraged, where the man may be on a plantation many miles away, and he may be encouraged to not or to have the serial type of polygynous type of environment where he would have women on different plantations and be encouraged to breed them and take no personal responsibility, because that's the part I didn't read. Let me go ahead and read that, because the observation at that time was, what did I just read? Page 70. According to Du Bois, and this is true, during the first decade and a half of the 20th century, Du Bois continued to see the confluence of race and class as crucial to understanding slavery's legacy in American life. In 1908, he posted that the essential figures of Negro slavery in America was no legal marriage, no legal family, no legal control over children. Yeah, I'm reading a little bit because I'm reading a little bit from the slave narratives. And here is why. For those who have just joined us, welfare babies, there was a Fox News article that I came across on Facebook. And one of the brother named Christopher said that Facebook deleted it. It was a European who shared. The European named Nathaniel shared that these people under the Fox News article were being extremely racist. He puts, if you need any convincing that racism is alive and well in America, just look at these comments on this Fox News article posted this morning. We need to be better than this. It went viral. His post goes viral, okay? Over 7.8 thousand views at that. Yeah. At that point, it goes viral, okay? He ends up having, I went to his page today, he ends up having to take it down because he says he woke up the next morning, this is the European, after just showing the blatant racism that's still here and prejudice that's still here. He said he got threats. He said he got how many friend requests, and it was so weird that he personally took down the post. So some of what he was talking about was captured by Christopher. And some of what it is that the woman, the article says, a Houston woman gave birth to 6 babies in the span of 9 minutes on Friday morning. So she had multiple gestations. And the comment section was, all I see is 6 new welfare cases and a new addition being built on local prisons. Another person saying just what we need. Somebody else saying 5 different baby daddies. Oh, great, more welfare recipients. These are the comments. So the thought process is, and I've experienced this very subtly when I go outside with my children, minding my business, people look at you like, and you see these questions circling in their head. And I actually had someone a few years ago have the gall, the nerve, the gumption to approach me and say, I was actually in Walmart. Okay, y'all, minding my business. But this is why I think this is very important, because we have to see where this mentality is coming from and how did this country go from, oh, it's so good that you're breeding and I'm giving you incentive to breed if you're melanated, to, oh, why are you breeding and who's going to be paying for it? This is why I talk about looking at transatlantic slave trade, this crime against humanity, through the lens of domestic violence. Okay. Because now, when you no longer have any personal benefit for me, even though I exploited you, even though I removed you from your natural habitat, even though I tried to break you, even though I tried to do all those things, now that you no longer have any value for me, you're expendable. And all of the things that I lauded you for, all of the things that I was so excited about you doing for me, now that it's no longer beneficial for me, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to demean you. I'm going to down you. I'm going to do all of these things. This is why it is a very toxic interchange in relationship, and there's no need to be triggered. And I can't say you can't be triggered, but once you process what you're looking at, then you kind of deactivate the trigger, and now you can sit down and be like, okay, boom, let's talk about this, and let's talk about, has it ever really changed, or has this injury ever really been healed? So for the sake of time, I just went back and did that. And so I'm reading some of the stories of the breeders who were encouraged. You actually had men, European men, who owned breeders and would lend them out to go to different places and breed those people on that plantation. So you would have multiple women with this one baby daddy, as we're seeing today. Many of the children did not fare well, um, that they were having. Many of them died because the womb has to have time to rebuild itself, and breeding people or women like cattle, it's never a good look. Um, Let me see if I can just find one more for you. Okay. I've been farming till I got disabled. After I married, this is Rose Attaway. After I married, I went to farming and I birthed 14 head of children by that one man. 14 head of children. Sounds like you're talking about cattle. And this is exactly what you do. You breed animals. Okay. Stayed at home and took care of them till I got them up some size too. All dead but 5 out of the 14. So this Rose Attaway has 14 children. Imagine, do you know what it is to lose a child? Much less you had not breed, you birthed 14 children and 9 of them die. So that, and I'm trying to get to where the master would promise to free you if you, I will just have to come back and make a whole nother conversation of that. But the master would promise to free you if you had a certain amount of children for him to increase his stock. So with that said, welfare babies, Fox News article breeds contempt. We're gonna come back and maybe talk about this, but it's not where I can find the link in the box. Like I said, I'm just seeing, and having a talking point for where people's minds are, and the fact that now that you have brought people here, created conditions that they cannot take care of themselves, now you feel indifferent or resentful for them accessing welfare. One more issue, I think it came out in Newsweek or one of them. Here is another issue, and I'm going to leave it at that, which has always been an issue in the minds, and we have to come back. It's called the Negro problem. They speak a little bit about it here in this book, but I think if I'm not mistaken, the Negro dilemma, it's actually a book. I have it on my list. I haven't gotten it as yet. But this question of European people here having a negative birth rate. And that being a concern. Hold on. It was in a news article. Here it is. New York Times. Here's another concern. Here's another concern. So, here we go. and then I'm out of here, y'all. This came out a couple of times. Let's see. Where did it go? Fewer births. Here. This was New York Times. Fewer births than deaths among, quote, whites in majority of U.S. states. This is 2018. Deaths now outnumber births among European people in more than half the states, it says white. In the country, demographers have found signaling what could be a faster than accepting transition to a future in which whites are no longer a majority of the American population. So, like one of the persons said when they were seeing this, and they say, I see welfare cases, I see an increase, I see a decrease, I see losing ground. We have to talk to those particular fears. Okay, the Census Bureau has projected that whites could drop below 50% of the population around 2045, a relatively slow-moving change that has been years in the making. By a new report this week found that whites are dying faster than they are being born, now in 26 states, up from 17 just 2 years earlier. And demographers say that the shift might come even sooner. And you can continue to read this, and they're charting the birth as death. And this is not a new concern. I was reading yesterday, trying to finish up on my reading so I can do what I need to do. But the concern was also in the colonies in the beginning, when they were at the rate of bringing in melanated bodies to do the work. They saw that there were more, especially in South Carolina, there were more melanated bodies than there were Europeans. And that became a cause of concern because of the thoughts of insurrection, the thoughts of being overtaken. So anytime you see this is why a big news article, and this thought of, as they said, like somebody said, Planned Parenthood dropped the ball. These are people who are well aware that, listen, we need to get them. And I want to come back and talk about abortion. I've been wanting to talk about it. I did have Reverend Childress on this channel before. I want to talk about abortion as it existed in slavery and even up until today, and how within our community, first of all, sexual relations are being used as a sometimes a numbing agent, sometimes a coping mechanism. It's not being used in the way in which it should be, and it's reflected and the way in which it should be is in the context of building strong families. But the way in which it's being used is not in a healthy way, and we see that reflected in the numbers of abortion amongst melanated people. We see that reflected in as what some of the observations that are under the video. But that's something that we have to talk about, the conditions, because we have many foreparents who in some spaces refuse to bring forth child in the conditions so that the child wouldn't suffer these conditions. So we have to look at the psychology of that as well. But I'm not going to go all the way over there. Hopefully everybody was able to get the gist of what I was saying. If you missed it, just go ahead and rewind and come back to the beginning. And, let me know your comments, your questions in the box. If you want to cleanse, if you think you're full of something, and you think people who are full of something, take the C3 challenge. It is spring cleaning, so time to clean the clothing. So I'll be back a little later. I wanted to talk about another article that I saw that'll probably be later. All right, everybody have a blessed day. Leave your comments below. Like, subscribe, share, all that lovely, nice, good stuff. And shout out to all the new subscribers. We got more stuff coming for y'all. All right.